Metropolitan Opera Auditions of the Year. Metropolitan Opera Auditions of the Year, presented in their 19th season by the American Broadcasting Network in collaboration with the Metropolitan Opera Company.
This evening you will hear Maxine Norman of Detroit, Michigan, and Ann Stephenson of Richmond Hill, Ontario, with the American Broadcasting Symphony under the baton of the distinguished Metropolitan Opera conductor, Martin Rich. Our host, as always, for these Metropolitan Opera Auditions of the Year is American's celebrated music commentator, Milton Cross. Now, Mr. Cross.
Good evening. When Maxine Norman was entering her teens, she and her mother both were bent on her becoming a ballerina. However, as Miss Norman tells us, they both settled for voice when her mezzo-soprano capabilities were discovered while she was in high school. Born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, Miss Norman studied at Wayne University and returned there as a graduate guest artist to sing the role of Jocasta, the tragic queen in the production of Igor Stravinsky's Oedipus Rex. She has appeared since then as guest artist with the University of Detroit Chorale and in several oratorios, including The Messiah, the St. Matthew Passion, and Elijah. In concert here in New York, she has been heard in Spanish songs by De Falla, in the Brahms Zigeunerlieder, and in Mahler's Songs of a Wayfarer. Today marks a double event for Miss Norman and her family, with her appearance here and her brother's return from Germany, where he has been serving in the U.S. Army. In the midst of the amusing complications of the second act of The Marriage of Figaro, Mozart and his librettist, Lorenzo da Ponte, found a moment in which to inject a description of a young man's problems over the heartaches of young love. This, the page Cherubino's lovely song, for which Figaro's fiancée Susanna accompanies him on the guitar. Cherubino is, of course, traditionally sung by a young woman, and it is this famous aria we are to hear now. With Martin Rich on the podium, Maxine Norman sings Voi che sapete. Metropolitan Opera auditionist Maxine Norman has sung Voi che sapete from Mozart's The Marriage of Figaro. Our lyric soprano auditionist this evening is one of our good neighbors to the north, as the saying goes, and in fact traveled all the way from Canada through one of our recent eastern snowstorms in order to appear with us here. Anne Stephenson makes her home in Richmond Hill, Ontario, and in addition to half a dozen years of private study, she holds the artist diploma of the University of Toronto. She has studied at the Royal Conservatory of Music in that city and appeared there as Lauretta in Puccini's Gianni Schicchi. Other appearances include the role of Constanza in Mozart's Abduction from the Seraglio, which she has sung at the Banff School of Fine Arts during her work there over the past 2 summers. We are, of course, delighted to welcome another native of Canada, who is, by the way, a direct descendant of the famous English contralto, Dame Clara Butt, who was knighted by Queen Victoria. When a lovely young slave girl, Liu, faces the cold, cruel Princess Turandot in the 3rd act of Puccini's last opera, she gives the princess an unforgettable lesson in the meaning of real love. Tortured, hopeless, the girl cries that even the icy heart of the princess will be melted by love, and for herself, she will never see her prince again. Snatching a dagger from a soldier, Liu kills herself, lest she be forced to reveal the prince's name. Anne Stephenson sings Tu che di gel sei cinta from Turandot. Martin Rich conducting the ABN Symphony, Anne Stephenson has sung Tu che di gel sei cinta from Puccini's Turandot. Mozart is, of course, famous for his sparkling overtures, among his many other brilliant contributions to operatic literature. Martin Rich conducts the ABN Symphony in the overture to Così fan tutte by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. delightful overture to Mozart's Così fan tutte, conducted by Metropolitan Opera maestro Martin Rich. The climax of the great duet in the second act of Samson et Dalila comes as Samson responds to the tears and passions of Dalila by crying out that destiny has decreed that he love her. Delilah responds triumphantly, exultantly, with one of the most famous arias in the entire Samson score. Maxine Norman sings that aria now, Mon cœur s'ouvre à ta voix, my heart at thy sweet voice. With Martin Rich conducting, Maxine Norman has sung Mon cœur s'ouvre à ta voix from Samson et Dalila. With his wonderful flair of the drama in contrast, Mozart placed one of his most dramatic arias in one of his greatest comic pieces, The Abduction from the Seraglio. And Stephenson sings Martern aller Arten from Die Entführung aus dem Serail. And Stephenson has sung Martin alla Arten from The Abduction from the Seraglio by Mozart. The ABN Symphony was conducted by Martin Rich. This is Milton Cross inviting you to be with us next week at this time on most of these same stations for the next of these Metropolitan Opera auditions of the air.
You have been listening to the Metropolitan Opera Auditions of the Air, presented in their 19th season by the American Broadcasting Network in collaboration with the Metropolitan Opera Company. This evening, you have heard Maxine Norman of Detroit, Michigan, and Ann Stephenson of Richmond Hill, Ontario, with the American Broadcasting Symphony under the direction of the distinguished Metropolitan Opera conductor, Martin Rich. Your host for these auditions of the air is American's celebrated music commentator, Milton Cross. The Metropolitan Opera Auditions of the Air are written by Ira Marion, coordinated for the Metropolitan Opera Company by John Gutman, produced and directed by William Marshall. Technical supervision, Fred Ripple. This is Bill Brophy speaking.
This is American, the American Broadcasting Network.
An exciting radio premiere. Opera enthusiasts across the land are eagerly looking forward to exceptionally fine listening Saturday, February 1st, when the American Broadcasting Network will present the radio premiere of Samuel Barber's new opera, Vanessa. Brought to you directly from the stage of New York's Metropolitan Opera House, this new Samuel Barber work with libretto by Giancarlo Menotti is the highlight of the current series of Saturday matinee Metropolitan broadcast. Soprano Eleanor Stieber will sing the title role of Vanessa, and in supporting roles you will hear Nikolai Geda, Rosalind Elias, Regina Resnick, and Giorgio Tozzi. Don't miss the premiere radio performance of Vanessa this Saturday. Keep listening to American.